ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. So, after a long time, will be conducting this class on the Great Master, and the topic today is Sri Ramakrishna's longing and his first vision. We all know that he performed sadhana or upasana as described in all our various scriptures. But his first vision was not based on any scriptural guidance. In fact, the first guru came to him, Sri Ramakrishna's first guru, Bhairavi Brahman and all others, they came after this first vision. So his longing and yearning for God and the first vision, it preceded all the sadhana that he did. What he did later was very nicely explained by Srima Sharda Devi. When somebody asked that you see Sri Ramakrishna, the incarnation of this age, his speciality is that he brought about harmony of different sects and religions because he practiced all of them. Whereas Holy Mother said, no, that is not his uniqueness. Yes, that is one of his many uniquenesses. But one unique thing which we can see in Sri Ramakrishna is a natural renunciation, which other incarnations did not have to show. Not that they were incarnations are beyond all normal actions of our jivas. Avataras are not under that jurisdiction. But still, to set an example, that was the topic of all our previous discussions. Why we should ever discuss the human side of Sri Ramakrishna? Why can't we just discuss him as an avatar? There was a session a few days ago when a group from India, though they have listeners all over the world, so they gave a nice topic. Sri Ramakrishna in the Western world, Sri Ramakrishna Bhavdhara, or that was the first time I spoke in Bengali, that whole session. They said we know only Bengali, most of us. So I tried, and there the topic was that why did not Swami Vivekananda preach Sri Ramakrishna as an incarnation or even as a prophet or anything? He just spoke of him only once or twice, once in New York and once in London, when he was asked to speak, and he gave those two talks, My Master. But there also you'll find he is referring to him as a human being, as a sadhaka, is referring to his wife, Srima Sharda Devi, as his wife, who was, he also mentions that she was the one who supported when all other householder devotees of Sri Ramakrishna were asking them to go home and look after the parents. And they said Sri Ramakrishna never taught us renunciation. Whereas Swami Vivekananda says in My Master that it was Ma Sharda Devi alone who supported whatever they did, whether it was taking the vows of sannyasa in Atpur. Of course, there were others. There were others like Premananji's own mother. She was very helpful to these young monks. But you will see most of them were not very keen, the householder disciples were not keen because they thought Sri Ramakrishna never preached any kind of monastic life. He was himself, though they didn't realize that if we see all the sadhana, he takes sannyasa before Totapuri initiates him. He says, you have to first be initiated into sannyasa before you can be taught Advaita Vedanta, the Advaita sadhana. So he says, I'll go and ask my mother. So naturally, he thinks he's going to ask his biological mother, which was not the case. He went to the Divine Mother Kali, and because he had already had the first vision. That is what we are going to discuss today. That without any kind of guru or anything, just on the basis of his yearning, he had his first vision. And what was that first vision like? As I have often referred, there is a book, a nice book compiled by Swami Yogesh Anandji. He was in our Holland Park Center, and later on he died at the ripe age of 100 in Hollywood. He was in Atlanta for a long time. So he compiled a book. It's a compilation known as The Visions of Sri Ramakrishna. So he thought it is a good idea because his visions, the description of his different visions that he had, experiences he had, are scattered. In Great Master, of course, you will have some kind of sequential treatment given there. But if you read the Gospel, many times Sri Ramakrishna speaks of his own visions. So all those things, they do not convey an idea that there was some kind of continuity in Sri Ramakrishna's sadhana. Because his goal was that let us say sadhaka starts his spiritual life. How should he start? Suppose he doesn't have a guru, how should he start? And how should he do his sadhana? What are the essential things that are required to qualify for to qualify as a spiritual aspirant? So all these things would not have been possible if he had demonstrated only the divine aspect. So as a sadhaka, he was intensely human. He behaved like us, acted like us, did all the sadhanas like us. Like us means, of course, with the intensity was much more high. I mean, he was very intense. That is why he could reach the goal very fast, unlike us. But at least started from the same, he started in the same way as a normal spiritual aspirant would do. First of all, there would be doubt. Then he will whether decide whether it is worth, because all these things, unless one considers, a rational man will consider. We take so much of time to even buy a small house or to even take up a career or even uh, do anything in our life. We take so much, give so much of thought. We plan so much and then evaluate whether we will be able to sustain it. We wouldn't buy a house if we were not able to pay the installments. So we are very careful about these things. So also in spirituality, Sri Ramakrishna wanted to show that what are the prerequisites. The gurus did not just come, they came at the right time. Of course, you may say it is coincidence that one after another, culminating with this Advaita sadhana and then the practice of other religions, they all happened in a particular sequence. That was divinely ordained. And as Thakur would rather put it, he said it's mother's wish. Mother sent all these people. So whenever somebody came and expressed a desire to teach him something, because they saw he was a wonderful student, so a spiritual aspirant with full of divine qualities, he would say, I will ask my mother. So it was not his biological mother, but he would go and ask. And in the case of Bhairavi Brahmani or any other guru, even Totapuri, he was reluctant. He said, Before taking sannyas, let me go." Then then he goes and mother answers, the divine mother who gave him the first vision. Of course, the first vision was slightly different than what we think it was. He didn't directly have a vision of the divine mother as he worshipped her, the Bhavatarani, the image of Ma Kali that he was used to worship. He had a vision which will be described here now. How he had his first vision and what all things he saw and what happened, what were his subsequent visions. I'm talking all about these things before the guru start coming. Then there were specific sadhanas. Now, as Holy Mother said, that harmony of religions was not the intention. He did not practice all these sadhanas because he wanted to show, see, all these, though he said, Jotomat Tatopat, that means as many uh, faiths, so many paths. So there are different paths. That was accomplished, no doubt. But his goal, according to Holy Mother, was that he being a she uses the word, there is a word when somebody is very, very fond of food. He is known as a glutton. He is not happy if he gets only one dish. He wants to eat more and more dishes. So he is normally called a glutton as far as food is concerned. So Holy Mother said that he was like a spiritual glutton. One spiritual experience was not enough. He wanted to see, okay, this is how Vaishnavas worship him. oh, let us see how Shaivites worship him, how the experiences differ, and what kind of joy they got. So he was not happy with one particular vision. Though he had the first vision was very powerful, and the circumstances that led to that vision were also powerful, very powerful, because he was yearning, and for years together, every evening, his yearning was so intense that he used to literally cry. And the people thought that he's crying because his father had died, and then Ramkumar also, the one who raised him. So they thought perhaps he's crying because he had two deaths in his family. That's naturally what people will think. But anyway, his behavior changes. That is the first paragraph. That before his first vision, what was the kind of longing that he had, the yearning that he had that led to the first vision of whatever vision he had. We'll see what vision he had. So Sri Ramakrishna was quite young. We all know, we saw that before when his father died. So it was his elder brother. So he was under the loving care of his mother, was still alive, Chandramani. She even accompanied him to Dakshineshwar, and she was living in the Navath. He used to even take care of her, always go and ask, serve her, see that she ate properly, and then only he would take his food. So every day he used to visit, take good care of his widowed mother and his elder brother Ram Kumar, who ultimately he was 31 years older than Sri Ramakrishna. So much of the devotion, because he was very young when his father died. So he literally considered Ram Kumar, his elder brother, as his father, and he also loved him, wanted him to plan a career, at least work as a priest so that he can earn a living, get married, and all those things which are normal with householders. So, but that brother also who was taking good care of him, he was very young when he also dies. Therefore, he was extremely sad when his elder brother, suddenly died. Now, Sardananji says, in a way, now this is his interpretation. People will not naturally think these shocks are bad for one person. But there is another way of looking at it. He says, who knows? Perhaps the Divine Mother wanted this mishap which happened in his life to contribute, how much of that contributed to his conviction about the transitoriness of the world and enkindled the fire of renunciation in his pure mind. So, we come to the famous incident in the Mahabharata where Yudhishthira says, no matter how many deaths take place, may not be in front of you, but you hear of so many deaths of relatives, friends, and so many people around the world. But in spite of that, the desire to live eternally or to live, that I am not going to die, that always remains uppermost in the mind. So that is a kind of surprise for Yudhishthira. So here Swami Shardananji says maybe because he was sensitive, like Buddha, who had to just see somebody else suffering, somebody else dying only once. That was the extreme case. We are not as sensitive as that. Buddha, for the first time in his life, goes out. He was never allowed to see any misery. The first time he sees misery, his life was transformed. So we can say, Shadanji says, maybe Sri Ramakrishna was also like that because his father died, and after that, his brother who took so much care because even though he did not go to school, he was not scolding him, perhaps thinking that he is sad because his father has died. But there was something else in Sri Ramakrishna which made him always think deeply. He says, Sardhananji says, maybe this quick deaths that happened, his elder brother dying, maybe that led, because after all, now we are considering the human side of Sri Ramakrishna. A divine incarnation doesn't need all these sorrows to change their life. It is for us, people like us, who uh, these can be turning points in our life. But he says some of it definitely resulted in uh, enkindled the fire of renunciation in his pure mind. But it is known from that point onwards. But contrary to that, that of course was one of the reasons. But Other people thought that it is because of the sad death of his father first, and the elder brother, who was like a father, would have resulted in his going, not meeting people, going to Panchavati. He was leading a life of solitude. But he says we see the opposite. After that, he is seen to be he concentrated more on the worship of the Divine Mother. Obviously, one reason was that they gave him the responsibility. They said, your elder brother, he was looking after the small temple, doing puja in the small temple, and he was doing it with as a loving service. But after the passing of away of his elder brother, they asked him to do puja there. And then he said, looking at the gorgeous jewelry that was adorning the Mother Kali, because that was so many people would give uh, for various reasons, lot of jewelry, and then they have to make a mother wear that. So Thakur was very nervous. Sri Ramakrishna was very nervous. He said, I am not going to look after the I mean, these jewelry and other things, they are very valuable. My mind will be focusing on that, whether somebody will come and steal it. So, if somebody else takes the responsibility of this jewelry, which Hriday readily agreed, he was interested in those things. But anyway, he says, if somebody takes the responsibility, then I can, with a free mind, I can worship. So, anyway, here from this time onwards, after the passing away of his elder brother, actually he concentrated more because he was free from worries. He did not have to bother about the costly jewelry that adorned the Divine Mother. Somebody else had taken the responsibility. So he started doing worship in his own way, unlike the normal pujaris. So that is why they all started criticizing. This phase was very difficult because people could not understand. Sometimes he would finish the offering and then go on singing songs of the Divine Mother. Swami Shardanji says he would sing devotional songs of Ram Prasad, Kamala Kanta, and other mystics and lose himself in the thought of those songs. Sometimes, even when the door of the temple, which priests normally don't do, when the door of the temple was closed. Of course, after that, most of the priests would retire to their rooms. But suddenly, Hriday would find that he would abandon all company and go to the forest, jungle, which was even in those days, there was a dense forest there nearby, and people did not dare to go there for fear of ghosts and other things. So he used to meditate there at night. So Hriday did not like this strange behavior of his uncle. Though he had taken the responsibility not only of looking after the jewels, but after that he would always follow Sri Ramakrishna, see that he has taken. Somehow that was a wonderful service that he did. He always did it spontaneously. He loved his uncle and he used to always take care that he took his food. He had to be reminded that he has to eat. So he didn't oppose. He thought perhaps now his father died and he appeared to be abnormal in his behavior. Now the elder brother has died. So maybe now let him just relax, let him just get over the shock. That's what his worldly mind told him. And he said, let me just wait. Let him go, let him have his own way. And he used to sit and he never protested. But once slowly found that he was not even eating well as before. I mean, as he was doing when his brother was alive. So then he was definitely convinced that it is this sad demise of his brother that has resulted in this. So he went and investigated. Then we saw that uh, the description that is given will not repeat it. There was an amlaki tree. Uh, which was so dense and it was so isolated from the crowd or the people even the devotees would not dare to go there. So you would sit there even during daytime. It was dark, it seemed. That is how the description goes. So you can imagine. And moreover, the fear of ghosts will always be there. So nobody could see him. And then we see that Sri Ramakrishna goes, and Sri Ramakrishna tells, Sri Ramakrishna goes there, and Hriday once somehow saw him, and he saw him under this Amalaki tree, and he asked him, what are you doing here? Don't you know if you meditate under an Amalaki tree? Sri Ramakrishna was, one may think this is a superstition, but he was convinced that many of the things which pass off as superstitions, they show the sincerity of a aspirant. It's not whether it is true or not. But if the scriptures or if some books say and somebody guilelessly believes it, it is true for that person. So he said, don't you know if the scriptures say that if one meditates under an amalaki tree, whatever good desires he was very careful, only the good desires, not evil. You can't just go and ask for some money or something. He said, all the noble desires will be fulfilled. So, whatever it may be, he was keen that his desire to have the vision of the mother should be fulfilled, and he was prepared to go to this isolated place. So, Hriday naturally tried to frighten him. He didn't get convinced. Said, you can meditate in your room, who is disturbing you there? But somehow Sri Ramakrishna continued, and then he thought, let me frighten him. So he tried a lot of mischief and tried to throw stones, and Rila used to do all sorts of tricks to frighten him. And Sri Ramakrishna was not going to be frightened of. And he perhaps he knew that it is Hriday who is trying all this. So then we'll find the next issue is we saw that we discussed this briefly, the idea of taka, mati, mati, taka. So, takamati, that in Bengal it means clay is uh, clay is money, and money is like clay. I mean, what he wanted to convince his own mind was that is his way of sadhana. They say that and Swami Shardanji says here that he was not satisfied. You get a very good idea. We listen to so many wonderful ideas, and we perhaps sometimes take it seriously and get convinced, and for some time we are very enthusiastic about this great spiritual idea and noble spiritual ideas, and then think that, oh, one day we should practice it. Sri Ramakrishna was not like that. Here he says, whenever a thought came to him, he always saw to it that he thought it so many times. It's like Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. Shravana means you hear it. Hearing once, you get some idea, then you have to do think deeply. Even if the scripture says, uh, the followers of the path of knowledge, the Jnana Margis say, you have to inquire and not just accept anything as it might be some kind of silly dogma. So you don't have to accept it. Try to see whether it tallies with the previous experiences of great souls, because there's no rational way to ascertain the truths of the great spiritual truths and experiences. So, if we have to believe the scripture to some extent, not always, to some extent we have to believe, and then try to analyze whether it is rational, whether there is precedence. There are people who have been practicing this, which we can easily trace the historicity of Gita or the many other scriptures. There are so many stories, so many traditions in the world where there are certain common things that have been practiced by all the prophets, including Buddha. So if they are doing certain things which are sanctioned by the scriptures and they have found results, they have realized the goal, then it stands to, I mean, it confirms that the truth of these teachings. That is the second step. That is known as manana. So after Shravana, after hearing once, twice, maybe 100 times, some people may need to hear it again and again. We come to the stage where we do manana, we do analysis, find out, does this teaching or does this sadhana, does this mantra, does all these things that I am preparing to follow, does it belong to an authentic spiritual tradition? That much we have to ascertain. Even to get admission into college and school, we make sure that that college or school or that university has a tradition behind it, a reputation behind it. We just don't join any school on the street. Similarly, here, the manana doesn't mean rationally analyzing, because there will be no end to that. We'll go round and go on analyzing, go on reading books, go on hearing YouTube lectures, and eternally go trying to discuss without even practicing nididhyasana. So manana means not discussion. That's a very wrong idea. Manana means thinking deeply, comparing it with the authentic traditions which preceded, whether there are enough people to justify, to show that the teaching has come in a particular spiritual tradition, and the people who were sadhakas of this tradition, they have had great spiritual progress, or they achieved something spiritual. So this can be known from the history of that spiritual movement. That is why Acharya Shankara was very clear. He says, don't accept anything, however rational it may appear to you, unless it follows a particular tradition. Parampara, they call it. Parampara means one after another, people in that tradition have been constantly practicing that and getting results. So it is, even to buy a fighter plane, we try to find out whether it has been tested in battle, whether it, so much precaution we take. We don't take a new product just like that. We see the reviews, even for such a simple thing, material thing. So what to speak of traditions? So Siram Krishna never accepted anything, whatever he heard. First he heard, then he did manana on that, because a lot of people, though he could not read books, he never read books. In fact, he rarely read books. Somebody would read out to him, though he knew a little bit of reading and writing, since he never went to school. But he has himself admitted, I might not have read, but how much of spiritual advice and spiritual teachings I've heard from the people who are just ready to share it. That was a golden era when people used to pass by Dakshineshwar, go to Puri. On the way, so many saints of those, so many sects belonging to so many different faiths. They used to pass just for shelter, they used to come. That was the intention of Rani Rasmani, that people who come here for a little food, they will give valuable teachings to whoever wants it. So they would get everything free. So Sri Krishna would get everything, all the gurus that came to him, all the great spiritual stalwarts who came, they practically, knowledge is free, unlike in universities. Everything is free in the spiritual. Uh, Only thing, there are no takers, or people don't, because it is free, they think it is not valuable. So anyway, Sri Krishna used to do a lot of manana, thinking deeply. It just would not take, even if we read Ram Prasad, Kamalakanta, there are so many saints who followed the Shakti path, who considered God to be the Divine Mother. So obviously he made a comparative study. Whatever he heard, he saw there is so much consistency. The spiritual experiences of people who followed a tradition, they don't differ, because their songs are based on their own spiritual experiences. They just don't read books and try to tell others. They just have these experiences themselves. So Sri Krishna belonged to a authentic spiritual oral tradition. We call it a oral tradition. That is how in the morning there was a class on Raj Yoga, where so much of importance uh, Patanjali will give to Smriti, what is known as memory. So the question was, why do we have these sutras? I'm just uh, digressing from the main topic now, because this is the important thing. Why Sri Krishna studied in a tradition which can be called the great ancient oral tradition of India. And mind you, it was systematically destroyed by Macaulay's modern education system, or rather, I would call it a examination system. What they have reduced to our education in India, what they achieved was replace our education system with an examination system which will test the informative skills and information and other skills that a student has, but not the wisdom. They don't test the wisdom and the character or the nature of a person. That is left to other, um, either parents or other people. What they give is academic education. So Sri Ramakrishna rejected that. Mind you, he was also born in the same year when this law was passed to destroy the spiritual oral tradition, which Sri Ramakrishna would have agreed to, because he learnt under that oral tradition. Anyone who comes there, all great sadhakas, so he would listen very carefully. That's why when somebody pointed out, how can you quote so many scriptures and Gita? And he says, I have heard so much. It's, you cannot say Sri Ramakrishna was uneducated, even in spiritual scriptures. The scriptures, whatever a Pandit would go learn in a school, a oral tradition, or modern university, he had access to it because people were distributing these things freely if there was somebody to listen. And since he was keen, he could hear the teachings of yoga, teachings of, and he took everything what he heard seriously, and his memory was so sharp. If he heard anything once, he could not only remember it, he could reproduce it. That's why we find in the gospel is quoting so many things. So this oral tradition, as Patanjali says, I'm coming to the topic which we discussed today morning, that Patanjali says the sutras and the whole system of sutras were designed in such a way that the 700 sutras one was expected to memorize before even coming to the school. To learn these sutras, if they are memorized, they become part and parcel and helps you in manana. Shravana means listening to all these things, memorizing them, making part of your own uh, personality rather than allowing it to remain in the books. That's what we do. All our notes and everything is in the books. Now and then we have to refer to it. Some of it goes into our memory. Some of the things we memorize. The rest of it, now and then we are allowed, or maybe we are needed to refer to those written things. So our knowledge is partly in our brains, partly in the media or the books and other things. But Sri Ramakrishna's knowledge, if at all he acquired something, he heard something, was all internalized. So his Shravana was perfect, his Manana was perfect. He used to always ask. If he had doubts, he would always ask. And the monks and the holy people who passed, so many, see his entire life, the first half of his life, he, from the age of 6, they say he used to go and serve whenever he got a chance in Kamarpukur to serve these holy men. And in the process, he would overhear so many things. Maybe he was a child, but even a child, as a child, when you hear certain things, they remain deeply impressed in the mind. So here you find when these people, these great bowls and other people who used to sing songs of Kamalakanta and all, talking about the uselessness of the money. If they were interested in money, they would have not written songs about the Holy Mother. If you see Ram Prasad, he was dismissed. He was a clerk in a firm, and in his account books, he was so much absorbed in mother's devotion, and poetry used to flow, and he used to write these songs. Most of his compositions you will find in his account books. So naturally, nobody would employ him. So he was dismissed. So you see how they were obsessed with this idea, and that it became part and parcel. So hearing about all these things, he would try to test. Now we come to the main points. Swami Shardananji says he was not happy with just Shravana and Manana. He wanted to make the idea which, if once he is convinced this idea is good, by hearing to Ram Prasad, Kamalakanta, and so many saints, he says, well, they are repeating the same thing, and they were great people. So there's no reason why I should doubt them. So after that, he would do Nididhyasana. That is what Shardanji says. He used to say, Taka Mati Mati Taka, and then convince his mind. Once, if you convince your mind, it's not enough. So perhaps to Hriday, he appeared like a madcap. He said, what is this uncle doing? whatever coins he has, he's just trying to go on the bank of the Ganges and uh, take the clod of earth. And Hriday sees it from a distance and he says, "What are you doing? If you don't want money, give it to me." Because he was there only to earn money. He was also always looking to meet rich people, and uh, though he was very uh, he did a lot of service to Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna knew that he is so devoted, he was so angry with Sri Ramakrishna that he refused the 10,000 rupees that Lakshmi Narayan Marwadi had offered. So he said, "Are you mad? Have you lost your senses?" So here also he was taking this coin and earth and throwing. This is a way how medically, because Swami Shardanji was training to become a doctor. He had not finished his medical studies. He says, he explains this phenomena by saying is for Sri Krishna, he was not satisfied with ideas which are frozen in the brain. He wanted to make a nervous association of those ideas, and the whole nervous system should be tuned to that. See, this is a very profound discovery. You will not find this anywhere. Why he had to do habitually go and say money and clod of earth is same and literally do it, do that action. Because in psychology, you see, thinking, feeling, and willing, all the three faculties, if they are in tune, then that idea becomes deeply embedded in your consciousness. And then it should be so deeply embedded that it should become part of the nervous system. So thinking should be followed by intense feeling, which he had. And then the willpower has to be trained. There is another aspect of the mind which is will. So it has to be converted, this idea. So for that reason, even throwing mud and coin in the Ganga, he had to do again and again, so that his nervous system accepts this idea 100%. See, that is the beautiful analysis. Hridaya was hardly would understand anything. And it is only Shardananji. That's why when Max Muller needed some information, Swami Vivekananda knew that if I just give him some biographical details, Thakur was born, he did this, he did this miracle. He said, "No, don't give all this useless stuff. Miracles are not part of spiritual life. If you want to discuss everything in a very scientific way, the sadhana of what Sri Krishna did. If you see Max Muller's biography, the first biography, the material was prepared by Swami Shardanji based on the great master. He expanded that and made this immortal book in 5 volumes. But the original uh, abridged version, not abridged, a small, because he didn't want to make it very long, and perhaps Max Muller would not have published it also. He just wanted Sri Krishna, his life and sayings. But if you see that book, if you read that book, you'll find that he's almost having the same kind of treatment, how he uh, handled the different phases of Sri Ramakrishna's life. It just didn't start by saying that he was a great holy person and he was maybe an avatar. Then the Western world would not have appreciated. They want to see how he struggled as a human being, as a human sadhaka, and how you can convince the Western world, not only the Western world, any thinking person, how ideas uh, are transformed into actions, and for that, that nervous association of ideas is very important. So why we do repeat certain japa? Why do we do mantras? Can we not just do once if we have understood the meaning? Many times we understood something, then we don't think about it because we have understood it. What is more to study? Let us try something else. That's what happens in when there are people go undertake spirituality and they want different thing. Oh, I have heard of this Upanishad. I have finished that. They just are keen to finish one book after another. Oh, then I'll read some Buddhist book. Then I'll read something about Bible. I'll read 100. It's not necessary. It's enough if you stick to something, one thing, whichever faith you belong to, and then go deep into that to Shravana, first hear, uh, try to reason as much as possible, find out whether it is part of an authentic tradition and how many practitioners of this particular faith have got mystic experiences or the real genuine spiritual experiences. And then that is manana. And then, as Sri Ramakrishna said, make nidhi dhyasana. Nidhi dhyasana means deep meditation. It's a kind of meditation where thinking, feeling, and willing, these three aspects of the mind, and also, of course, concentration, which is Raj Yoga. Four yogas are combined. So then that knowledge becomes authentic knowledge, a knowledge which results in experience. So that is why when Swami Vivekananda came, he was searching for someone who belonged to an authentic tradition and who could see that, who could say or who could tell with conviction that he had had these experiences. So he goes to Devendranath Tagore, the famous Brahmo. He goes to almost all the Brahmo leaders whom he respected so much. They were great. They started great movements, but everything was Shravana and Manana. Even Manana was not there. So you'll find there's a lot of preaching going on. Paid preachers of the Brahmo Samaj, they came. Even they say the Queen of England gave audience to Rajaram Mohan Roy and Keshav Sen. He came and spoke here. He was respected because he was educated in the foreign universities and even died here. So they were all greatly respected people. But when they came to Sri Ramakrishna, they sat like innocent children learning from which their followers could not understand. How come this person who's honored all over the world sits at the feet? Because they were genuine. They also were searching for genuine spiritual experience. So that is why Vivekananda first, he becomes a Brahmo, he joins Brahmo Samaj, he goes, asks them difficult questions. He asked them, have you seen, you claim that this is the nature of God. What experience you have? So all of them somehow try to avoid this question till he comes to Sri Ramakrishna. He was convinced because Sri Ramakrishna said, not only I can show, I give you the, not only did I have the experience of God, but I can share it with you also. So that means through Nididhyasana, through repeated practice, the idea has been so nervously associated with that the whole personality of that person, the spiritual aspirant, is suffused with this idea. There it is not a question. Now many ideas have become part of our nervous system. For example, smoking. You don't have to, a chain smoker, the moment he sees a cigarette or even if it doesn't see, he will go and smoke because his nervous system is telling him to go and it has become part of his nervous system. He has become, we call it addiction, but it's the same. So Swami Shardanji says if you can get addicted to silly things like smoking, drugs, and so many other things like money, that is also a kind of addiction. So if you can get addicted to that, why can't you get addicted to spiritual ideas? The spiritual ideas also need a kind of addiction. That is why repetition is necessary. You smoke once, you don't become a smoker. You have to smoke 100 times. You, even a simple thing, to become a confirmed smoker who has the whole idea of smoking built in his nervous system, you have to smoke several times. For such a silly thing, if practice is required, Shardanji says, to make a spiritual idea your own, just like you become a smoker by smoking again and again, you need repeated practice. So that is why Sri Ramakrishna was not satisfied that Ram Prasad or Gita or Upanishads, he had heard everything. They say renunciation, but then can I really do it? Do I have enough detachment to say that the clay is mati, is taka, taka is mati, go in the Ganga and then throw both? Because he had really convinced his mind that these have no value for a spiritual aspirant. They may have value for other people. So, but Hriday was not able to understand. He said, his uncle has definitely gone mad. Nobody throws a coin and sitting on the bank of. So many times he tried to discourage him. But Swami Shardananji says he could not understand what he is doing. In fact, he was doing Nididhyasana. Repeating an idea once, twice, thrice, 100 times, that is exactly the science of mantra. People just want a result after practicing mantra for a few. It is a technique because of repetition, it becomes part of the nervous system in such a way that the other habits that have been formed, not just smoking was just a small example I gave. There are hundreds of habits that we have formed over several lifetimes. So to neutralize the effect of that, you have to have counter habits, cultivate counter habits. Just as when if you want to uh, remove the addiction that a person has for drugs, he has to undergo a course of de-addiction. He has to struggle. It's not in one day that he'll give up his habit. You have to cultivate the opposite, as Patanjali says, Pratipaksha Bhavana. So the sadhana here is trying to say that renunciation was not natural. He shows that renunciation has to be cultivated. You hear once and then go home. You can't, you have to practice. So that explains the logic how Sri Ramakrishna again and again physically performed these actions. And when he was tested, because Swami Vivekananda would not believe, he said, how can these ideas become part of the nervous system? Of course, he understood that he consciously went to the bank of the Ganges and threw both. That is a conscious effort he has made. But unconsciously, as he accepted this idea, so to test that, he takes a coin and sees. He says he doesn't stand the touch of a coin. It went, his renunciation was so extreme. That is why mother says that is his great achievement. Not that he performed sadhana, see, that is very easy. For him, it was absolute child's play. The Advait sadhana, which took 40 years for Totapuri's guru, he could realize that in 3 days because of the intensity of his effort. But what was great in his life, according to Holy Mother, was see such a natural renunciation. Swami Vivekananda did not accept him just because he claimed that he had visions. And also, he touched him and gave him those visions. He accepted him because he tested him. He just put that coin below his bedding and just to see if his nervous system reacts, then let us see what happens. He says he cannot stand. Is he hypocritical? He had gone to such an extreme state that he could not stand the touch of a coin. So unconsciously, the coin was put without his knowledge. What Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda thought he would not know about it. But the moment he sat, he said, just jumped up. He said, there's some touch of the coin I can feel. Though there was a mattress in between. Maybe thin mattress, but there was something. It's not that he physically felt the touch of that coin, but even a remote touch would uh, create a impact in his nervous system. And he shouted, he said, it's like a scorpion biting me. I felt, what is that? Then they cleared, then they found it, a coin was hidden. That is one incident. Then there is another incident which we discussed in the morning today, that they were asking the question, there were some question answer sessions, the devotees were asking, how can we accept this idea of aparigrain? Thakur's life, of course, it is there. Asteya, asteya means non-stealing. It's one of the 8 yama and niyamas, which are preparatory disciplines even before one starts the practice of yoga. Asana comes as the third step. So even before asana, there is yama and niyama. One of the yama is, one of the important aspects is, along with ahimsa and many other things, there is uh, aparigraha, which is non-acceptance of gifts, but there is another asteya, which is non-stealing. So even that had become nervously associated with Sri Ramakrishna. Even unconsciously, he could not steal. One example is there, and we'll conclude with that. Sri Ramakrishna used to, uh, in thought, word, and deed, he did not, by stealing what he meant for a person like him, stealing means taking something which really does not belong to you. Indirectly, it is a kind of stealing. Whenever you take something which does not belong to you, it is stealing. This is a simple definition. But in one incident, you will see how this was taken to the ultimate level. Because whenever some devotee said, because of your throat problem, if you take lemon juice, it will be very good. But of course, you could not ask. He had no money with him, so he could not obviously buy lemon. So he said, and the temple also authorities would not provide whatever he wanted. Whatever prasad came, he just was satisfied with that. So one of the devotees, when they heard the doctor, they said, "We'll supply you." One of our devotees who has a big orchard, he has agreed. Somebody was designated to take those lemons every day, bring, and they would make something and feed him. So he accepted that because the person, the owner himself offered that you can please take. There are so many lemons in the tree. You can just pluck them and take whatever you want for Sri Ramakrishna. But one day, that same devotee, as per his routine, from the same tree, practically the same orchard, brings the lemon and makes the lemon juice, and Sri Ramakrishna is not able to drink. He just throws it away. He said, "No, no, no, I don't feel there's some mistake. Where did you get these lemons from?" So, as if it is stolen property, or maybe it has been brought from some other source other than the ones which he had agreed to. Then he said, "No, no, it is the same tree." Then he said, "No, you just go. I can't simply drink this." His nervous system would not accept it. So that is what is meant by nervous association of idea. Then he goes and tries to go to the owner and ask the owner. Owner, he said, "I just forgot to tell you. Yesterday, I had transferred all the papers and I've sold that farm to someone else." So from that day onwards, legally, that property belonged to somebody else. So taking the lemons, even if if the permission was granted, it's as good as theft indirectly. So that is why then the devotees understood. Now we have to approach either the new owner or outsource it from somewhere else. So that shows that these ideas, which uh, Swami Shardananji writes, he is tracing the sequence of his renunciation. First, it begins as ideas, simple ideas, which we appreciate, and we do manana. We go to the books like these, which analyze, which just don't state facts. Just reading some biography of some great person. That is why Swami Shardanand had to write this, to show that there is a struggle involved. Sri Ramakrishna did not come as a divine being just to shower his grace. Like most people, they want a incarnation or any divine form to just help them solve their problems. They don't even want to inquire beyond that. That he is full of grace, is full of compassion, and whatever I do, he will put up with that and save me when the need is there. That's all. That's the crude idea we have of these great incarnations. That's why Buddha wanted to dispense with the idea of God. He said, "It is your karma that you will suffer because of the cause and effect theory, the karma theory, which is a very powerful scientific theory." He said, "Why blame and I expect God to solve the problems of your karma? It is because of your karma you are suffering. So you can undo it by your own effort. Why involve God in this?" So that's why you find a religion which came out of Hinduism. It's part of Hinduism. Swami Vivekananda says Buddhism is the rebel child of Hinduism because he was born a Hindu. He saw that these Hindu ideas and ideas of helplessness and blaming God for everything and expecting God to solve all our problems is not a very scientific way. You have to undo the things that you have done consciously or unconsciously by your own conscious effort. That is what is sadhana, what is meant by sadhana. So Sadhanaji is giving us the sequence of Sri Ramakrishna sadhana. How he started first by hearing, then doing manana on these ideas, trying to find out who are the people who are saying this, what has happened in their lives. So the lives and the teachings, gospel and great master have to be studied together because it's not the teachings. He lived these teachings. So this is a beautiful explanation that Shardanji gives, that we have to analyze every event. It may be just a story for us. The Thakur is to stand on the bank of the Ganga. But if we do and go to Thames and throw it once, nothing is going to happen because the intention is not there. His intention was important, that he wanted the ideas that he took from the scriptures, he wanted to practice it to such an extent that after that practice, in spite of his own, intentions, whatever his intentions may be, in spite of that, he will be naturally, he will have a tendency to avoid that. So unconsciously also he could not touch because that idea had become deeply impressed on his mind and the whole nervous system, which is known as samskara. That is why they say the samskaras, the deep samskaras, they give rise to our thoughts, our tendencies. They are also translated as inherent tendencies. They are not actions right now because they are deep within our consciousness. But from there, these actions come, whether it is renunciation or whether it is greed or whether it is fear. You will find all these samskaras are hidden deep within our consciousness. And how to remove it is this gradual development of renunciation in the field of in the life of Sri Ramakrishna explains to us, and that is why we have to study how he did his sadhana, what were the experiences he had, what is the first vision he had, why did he hanker for more and more visions. You cannot just accept all these historical events in his life and read a small short biography. That is what many people do, and finish with it. Oh, he did this, he did that. It's a it's some kind of information. Of course, that is what Max Muller did, but at least he introduced, and that awakened a curiosity in the Western reader in those days to see, read in depth, and seeing the need for an authentic biography. This great master was written because Swami Shardanji felt already now the Swami Chetananji is bringing out a book, the different biographies. He's just doing it as a historical work. The different biographies of Sri Ramakrishna before Swami Shardanji wrote the Great Master, which is he has translated it as Sri Ramakrishna and his Divine Play. The same thing, Great Master. So he says there were so many biographies, very interesting biographies of Sri Ramakrishna written by some of his householders' disciples. Ramchandra Datta wrote, but if you compare it, you will see how narrow their knowledge was. They will just say something and then glorify their master. He says that's not going to be accepted by the world. You can't just glorify because he is your guru. You'll just say his incarnation. Then why should the world accept? They have their own incarnations. Each one has his own prophet. So what is so special? Can you explain what he did in great detail? So unless we understand that, that's why when Girish Chandra Ghosh one day was shouting, of course under the influence of some liquor maybe, he was quarreling with somebody and telling, you should accept Sri Ramakrishna as an avatar. Then Thakur, Sri Ramakrishna gets terribly upset on him. He said, who are you to announce? What is your qualification to say that I am an avatar? Have you understood? What he meant was not that he was angry on him, but he knew that such tall claims and just without any basis, without any rational discussion, any biography, why should the world accept? So Swami Shardanji is making all efforts to see that a very rational scientific explanation as far as possible. Because when we say scientific, we have to be, it means scientific temper. Not all that science says is scientific. As Richard Dawkins says, Richard Dawkins wrote that book, God Delusion. The whole idea of God is a delusion because science explains everything. So another scientist had to counter it, Rupert Sheldrake. He wrote a book, The Science Delusion. He said science is not free from delusion. There are many things they cannot explain. So let us not blame each other or say that God, idea of God or religion is a delusion. But if it is presented in a scientific way, as Sri Ramakrishna did, or as Shardananji explained it, it's not that many other biographies were obviously written by other people, but they failed to understand the need for the human side, what the human side of Sri Ramakrishna's life did, why he should be studied as a sadhaka like us, who's struggling with it, all the struggling with poverty, struggling with criticism. See how much he had to face. His own employees of the Dakshineshwar temple, his own uh, Ramlal Dada, who later on deprived mother of the 7 rupees that she was getting, and she had to practically starve all her life. So such people were there. Not that their life was all smooth sailing. There were people, jealous people, scheming people. Some of the priests were so angry, they wanted to torture him, trouble him. So with all that, all those things which a human being can expect in his or her own life, how he countered them, how he handled them, and how it allowed him to follow the chosen path in spite of all the obstacles, in spite of all the problems. So, if there is any question, yeah, we'll conclude now. It's Aarti time. Any question? Sanaya? She was listening very carefully. She has read, I think, Divine Play. You have started reading, no? No, no. You have started reading this. The Great Master?